Me. Okay. Now we continue. We have heard about one topic that has been discussed, the maturity. Assessing the maturity of data space is the next session. And for that, we will have Mirte Borzik and Christoph Martens. Please, can you come to the stage? Or you will introduce the rest, how we are going to... Okay, and Sylvain Lebon from Starting Blocks. Thank you, Mitch. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to this session about assessing the maturity of a data space. So within the DSSC, we have developed a maturity model to assess the maturity level of data spaces. So it's a nice follow-up to the previous panel discussion. So the content of this session... So the maturity assessment is one of the dimensions of the impact evaluation reports that we are producing. So we'll first introduce a bit the impact monitoring and evaluation activities of the DSSC. Then we will dive more into the maturity assessment. Then Christoph will explain about the data spaces radar, because this is the tool in which the maturity assessment will be made available to the data spaces and also to visualize it. And last but not least, Sylvain will talk about what maturity means or talk about maturity in relation to the trusted European media space. So since the adoption of the European Strategy for Data in 2020, the European Union has been investing in the creation and development of data spaces in strategic sectors. And they anticipate tangible benefits for the European citizens and the economy. So because the European Commission is investing in these data spaces, the Data Spaces Support Center has a task around impact evaluation and monitoring. So the main purpose of this activity is to collect insights into the socio-economic outcomes of EU-funded data spaces, also to provide data spaces with insights on their performance, also in relation to their peers, and to foster peer learning among the community. And then the third objective of this impact evaluation and monitoring is to identify pain points and also to identify priority support areas. So we have conducted a first evaluation, baseline evaluation last year. We have just launched the survey for the midterm evaluation report last week. So the data spaces in scope for this midterm evaluation are shown on the screen. And next year there will be a final evaluation report. So mainly the data spaces in scope for this evaluation and evaluation report are the data spaces funded under the European Digital Program and also Horizon Europe. So what is the methodology for impact evaluation? So we have two types of inputs. We do desk research, and we also collect data via a survey to the data space initiatives. So the process has 4 phases. The first phase is to analyze the ecosystem. So basically, to what extent the data space is supported from a public, business, and societal perspective. The second phase is to determine the stage of development of the data space. The third phase is to identify the outcomes of each data space from an economic, social, and environmental perspective. And for the environmental outcomes, we do not only look at positive economic outcomes, but also at the environmental footprint. And then the fourth phase is to put these 3 dimensions in relation to each other. So in last year's survey, The maturity assessment, so phase 2, to determine the stage of development, was just based on one question where we asked the data spaces to self-assess the stage of development. So we asked them in what stage of development is your data space currently in. So we had 5 options: exploratory, preparatory, implementation, operational, and scaling phase. And this was very subjective, so it led to some discussions after receiving the answers on the right stage of development that was answered for some data spaces. So this meant that we needed a more objective way to assess the maturity of data spaces. So I will now go to the maturity assessment. So the Data Space Support Center has identified 5 stages of development, which a data space goes through in their progress and growth. So we have identified maturity indicators, sub-indicators, and survey questions for each sub-indicator. So the main purpose of this maturity model is to offer a self-assessment to data space initiatives to determine their maturity level, also to identify strengths and weaknesses, so that the data space knows where do I do well, where can I improve, and we also aim to make it actionable, so to provide some recommendations. And the second objective is to identify good practices and also to gain a wider understanding of the maturity and the readiness. So now we can look at the different dimensions and indicators of the maturity model that we developed with the DSSC. So we have 5 dimensions, as I already mentioned. So in the technical dimension, we look at to what extent security model governance has been put in place, has been identified and put in place, to what extent the data space participates in standardization processes, where the data and data processing infrastructure is located, and also whether the architecture of the data space is compatible or compliant with the reference architecture framework. In the business dimension, we look at use case maturity, the financial sustainability, as well as the business model and the governance model. So to what extent has this been defined, documented, and implemented? In the functional dimension, we look at interoperability, trust, and value creation. Then in the operational dimension, we assess the volume of activity. So this is mainly about a number of participants, number of contracts signed, number of data transactions and such sub-indicators. We also look at to what extent processes are in place for data quality, and also the number and type of operational governance processes in place. Then the last dimension is around the legal. So to what extent are there processes in place to ensure the extent to which the data space participants have control over their data? To what extent a legal compliance program has been put in place? And also if any processes are in place to make sure that the data space participants are aware of their legal obligations. So the outputs of this maturity assessment are 2. So first, in this midterm evaluation report that we will finalize by July, and the final evaluation report, the maturity assessment is one of the dimensions together with ecosystem as contextual information for the impact assessment. And second, from September onwards, the maturity assessment will be integrated into the data spaces radar. So it will be available for the data spaces to fill out. So maybe to conclude is that this maturity assessment is not to judge. It is there to support, to gain an understanding of the maturity level, and also to identify strengths, good practices, but also to provide some recommendations through this self-assessment tool. So with that, I will hand over to Christoph to talk about the Data Spaces Radar.
Yes, so thank you for handing over and for the introduction to the maturity model. As Mirte said, I think the model itself is great. We had in the panel before the idea of the scorecard and KPIs for data spaces. I think a maturity assessment is a great way to get closer to these KPIs. On this way, of course, we also will see which KPIs are more important, which are less important, which is something where we can assess really important things for us, and which are the ones that we also can leave aside. But so from the DSSC perspective, in order to make this available not only for the close stakeholders, for the community of practice, and for the other data space examples that are close to the DSSC, we wanted to bring this to the broader audience and allow this assessment for everyone. I don't know who of you, maybe you can raise hands, and maybe I also can see you, who is aware of the Data Spaces Radar already? That's good. That's, I would say, the majority, so I don't have to go into the details what this radar is about, but I think at the end it's, especially at this stage, at the new, with the new version, also a tool that provides a lot of insights. The radar version that IDSA was inventing and hosting before on their own was already a good starting point, but with the new radar we have a set of new features that do not only come with a new look and feel, but also with many information that the data spaces can feed into the radar, and that those who browse the radar can have a look into. So I think it's user experience one, increased capacity, so we created a bit more space for radars. In the old version, which also came with a look of a radar, we had pie charts, so to say, for each domain. We got rid of this because we also figured in some domains there are more data spaces and use cases already out there. This gets very crowded. In others there is not too much going on. It didn't look that well, so creating more space by getting rid of the pie charts and rather going for filters that allow you to dive deeper into certain domains made more sense. We also have enhanced visualization, so I go to how it looks like in a moment. The filtering is also, I can show you a bit more hands-on in a second. Global reach, so opening it up, not having only the IDS area that basically asks you, are you compliant with the IDS reference architecture, is a big step ahead, and also in order to also include people from other parts of the world and other standards that are out there that also have a deep impact into the data spaces world. And technical transparency, so everyone can see what is going on there. So what you can see here slide-wise is, by the way, and I will show also a QR code where you can download the brochure, which hosts more information about the community of practice examples especially. We have, in the meantime, 150 examples, I think, not only 144, but when we printed this, it was 145. So everything is increasing, more and more initiatives are joining, which is great. Here you can see the different numbers of examples that we have in certain domains, and this also continues here on this slide where we have even more domains and examples. Every data space out there can register, and I think I will also, for those who are not quick enough with this QR code, show this again in a moment. But what you can see here is the lookalike. So the tool itself looks currently like this, and we sticked, as you can see, to this appearance of a radar, because what it brings as an information is the maturity. At this point of stage, it's a self-assessment by just you register, you state at which state you are, coming from the outer rim of this data space radar. Basically, it would have been enough to sit together yesterday with a beer and agree on a beer tap with someone about a data space. Then you would be on the outer shell all the way to the center where you have to be operating, basically. So that is the idea of how close you are to the center. Above this circle thing, the blue boxes that you can see, I think it's pretty hard to read. Oh, it should be okay. These are the domains. So you click on one of these filters, and the set of data spaces that you see in general, the 151 actually, is something that reduces to the things that you're interested in. In the middle part, right from the center, right from the circle, you then see, if you click on one of these concrete example data spaces or use cases, you can see like a profile of it with general information. What was the challenge? How did they solve it? What is the background? What is the idea? Who are the partners that are involved? Maybe even also the funding is of interest. Just a general overview of things to make this entry not too complex. But we also have another view, so you can click through this, through the different views. You also can see here certain charts, so like number of participants, and this is just the starting point also for this chart view. Again, here I think it's a great way to also have a look at some of the KPIs that we figured already, which is basically work in progress. Next view, this is the one that I like most. So sitting at this and playing around with it, it's like the map view, so you can explore a bit the world, see what is happening in other parts of the world, which examples are out there in Japan, in the US, in China, and wherever. You can really play around a little bit. So that's fun to explore. And for those of you who really like details, we also included this table view because what you will be encountered with if you register your own example, it's quite a long and detailed survey. You don't have to fill everything, but in case you do, because you want to share all informations following the building blocks, which building blocks did you solve in which way, you can feed all these information in, but you don't have to. But those who did, you will be able to find all these informations in the table view, which is a pretty detailed thing, I would say, so all information are available. If you would like to have a look into the data spaces from the building blocks perspective, there is also the building blocks view available, which sorts this information in the building block categories, so making it a bit easier to dive into these topics. We still have a lot of work ahead. The building blocks that we reflect at this state in the radar are still the ones that were defined in the Open Day project quite a while ago. With a new blueprint that was published by DSSC, you're probably also aware of the fact that we raised the number of building blocks quite a bit. Therefore, also, of course, we have to restructure a bit the radar itself, the structure here for the questionnaire. Also, that's work that we will do until the summer period, and I think in September we will have a new version that will also reflect the blueprint structure will come into building blocks. And for me, most important also the maturity assessment, because this state of, basically this is Wild West, right? So you register a data space, you state your life. And I would really like to have a data spaces radar which gives a bit more grip to the statement of how mature is your example, and the maturity assessment that was just presented is a great way to get one step into this direction without being too much a pain for the data spaces registering and being too naughty on pushing for the reality here. So it still will be a mix of a fun way to explore and to register and have a great community and see what's happening out there with the certainty of the maturity. If you feel like exploring this, I got the feeling you already know how to find the radar. If you have a data space hidden or you invented one yesterday on a beer tap during a beer, feel free to register it here. Both QR codes will lead you to the website, one to the registration form, one to the website itself, and therefore to the tool. I would say that's enough of theory for the tool and the maturity. I would like to invite Sylvain to give some more insights into the TEMS project, one of the projects that I enjoy a lot because it comes from an area that I at least did not anticipate before. So media was something I did not think of when I thought about data spaces, but obviously we need data spaces in all fields. which is great news. And Silva, I would be glad if you could give us some insights into this project and also reflect a little bit on the maturity aspect that we now have been introduced to.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm Sylvain. I'm the co-founder of Starting Blogs. We are a search engine for data spaces, which helps you integrate all your data into the end-user apps. So we want to be the abstraction layer for the other world so that they can use the data space and use the data that they can find in your data spaces. So I'm here today to talk to you about TEMS, the trusted European media data space. This data space is an ongoing project. It started a few months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, to actually structure the data interactions on the media field in Europe. There's a lot of challenges today in the media sector that is related to the digital world. So one of them is the misinformation that you can find on social media, for example, or in the web in general. So sharing data is a way to address these kind of problems. They have a lot of issues with audience analysis as well, because audience is money in the media sector. And so being able to access the right data about audience is key to the sector to really know where the value is. And there's a lot of issues as well in being able to have a fluid exchange of data between all the actors, because a lot of actors are not very digitalized at the moment, so there's a lot of exchange of data that's really made like the old way, I would say. And of course, there's a strong impact on Gen AI, as you might know, because Gen AI uses a lot the content that are produced by the media sector, and so there's a need to organize this and to make sure that the value can stay in the hands of the people who produce the content. I'm going to talk to you briefly about a few of the use cases that are integrated into this data space. The first one is the EDMO, the European Digital Media Observatory. It's a gathering of people who produce fact-checking content online in Europe. And so today, they have this content of fact-checking all around the place, but it's very hard to access it and to distribute it to the people who could use it, for example, on blogs, on news articles, and so on. And so one of the key issues here is to make sure that whenever you need fact-checking for your blog, for example, you can find the right fact-checking and you can integrate it the right way on your web page. There's also a matter of integrating this into AI, because these content, as they are fact-checking, are very valuable. We talked earlier about hallucination of AI, and so the fact that these content are really verified makes it of very high value for the AI companies. Another use case that we can talk about is the TAMIS ecosystem. It's the movie industry in France who organizes the exchange of data in the post-production chain. Today, when a broadcasting company, a TV company, wants to broadcast a movie, for example, on their channel, they need to have subtitles added to the movie, for example. There's a lot of data that's transferred from the TV channel to the producer, to the distributor, to the laboratory that's going to work and edit the subtitles. And all of this exchange of data is complicated and non-efficient today. So this use case is about organizing the exchange of metadata about all the contents that are produced and broadcasted, so that the whole industry can interact more easily with this content. And then quite a few of those examples are about exchanging data, like finding assets, for example, for media content. For example, 3D models that are being used more and more, and a lot of channels create 3D models these days, but they have to reuse the same models or to recreate the same models because they're not able to find the existing 3D models that have been created before. So a use case is to find the right 3D models so that you can reuse them in their content instead of recreating them all the time. And so same thing for subtitles, for example, same thing for news content, etc. So all of these use cases are very different with each other. The data space today is at the specification level, so it's a low level of maturity, I would say, as we presented before. And so the challenge now is to know how we can go from this use case descriptions that we have that are not aligned with each other and turn this into a functional data space. Sorry, a functional data space that can be that can reach a level of maturity that we talked about earlier. And so the way we do that today is by describing the use cases according to a few functions of the data space that we want to be shared among use cases. And so, for example, in a lot of use cases that I talked to you about, there is data discoverability. So that means users need to find data somewhere in the data space. And so what we say is every time someone searches something on the data space, it should be done the same way. And whether you find, whether you look for subtitles or 3D models, it doesn't matter. You should use the same technical components. So we use this approach to actually unify the way we describe use cases in the data space, so that all of these use cases can be turned into a list of technical components that will be shared between all the pilot projects. And then I'm not going to go into the details of this, but just to give you a brief idea, we turn these user functions into a user flow that we use to describe how these functions will be used by the different use cases. And so that gives us both a list of business requirements for every single technical component of the data space and a way for these use cases to use these technical components. So this one was about post-productions, how a movie producer can work with the technical laboratory to create new subtitles, for example, and how this laboratory will register those subtitles into the registration agency, and then how this registration agency will certify those the new number that they attributed to the subtitles, and how, for example, the new broadcaster can find these new subtitles if they're looking to subtitles for their broadcast of the movie. So another example that would be more the asset exchange that I mentioned earlier. We would have a consumer that's looking for a 3D model, subtitles, news content, and so on. And so they will use discoverability first to find the right elements, and then contracting to get access to this element. And then they will integrate these contents into their daily apps to do whatever they need to do with it. And so that leads us to this kind of table where we can actually say, for all the use cases that you mentioned, these are the technical components that be used. And then we can, as I said, we can have the list of business requirements for all the technical components. And then also a description of how the different use cases will use those technical components to implement the functions they need to have. So that's it for me. So that's an example of a less mature data space, because we're still in the first phases of the deployment, and yeah, and that's how we approach the creation of that data space.
Perfect. So, Mirta, I think we have a wrap, right? So we can close this session. We're just in time to leave the others on stage. I don't know, Sylvia, will you moderate the next session to the stage then? Thank you very much for your attention. Anyhow, be part of the maturity assessment, join the radar, and have fun exploring it. Give us feedback if we can improve anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you.